Hi guys, so I thought for my second video that I might talk a little bit more about my practice and my beliefs and try and just give a bit of a better picture of what it looks like or why I do it, or why I believe what I believe, why I choose to practice how I do and things like that. And I wasn't quite sure what sort of structure to put on it or how to go about talking about that subject or where to start. And then I was watching a video today by Cat by Candlelight, and she made a video which was about the why of her practice and the why of her self-identification as a kitchen witch. And I found that video very interesting. And she touched on a couple of things that I found that I really related to. Even though obviously my practice is probably quite different to hers, and I don't use the label witch myself to describe myself at all. But I thought that maybe I would make a video response to her video, and that would be a good place maybe to start, to give me a starting point for talking about my own practice. So, like I said, my own practice is very different to hers, or at least has a very different label to hers. But particularly the first part of her video, it really sort of reminded me of a lot of the reasons that I find, or that I think that paganism is something that I have come to, or that I find to be relevant for me. And she was talking about our relationship with nature and with wilderness, and our human longing to sort of re-embrace nature because we're part of this modern world, and that in our day-to-day life we've become quite distanced from the natural world, and we've sort of ended up with this perceived divide between human and human-made and nature. I've said before in my first video, I talked about very briefly about how I perceive everything to be nature. I perceive humans to be part of nature. I perceive buildings and roads and everything. It's all nature. It's all part of the universe, and therefore it is natural and part of nature. But there has arisen, well, over time, as we come into the modern age, that division between human and nature has become ever more distinct. And I think because we evolved at a time when obviously we were living in very different circumstances. I think that might be one of the reasons, or the reason why we feel quite alienated sometimes from nature and from our roots, I suppose, or from our more natural habitat, or from how we feel at some core level how we should be living. So I was thinking about this and thinking about the reasons why paganism is compatible with naturalism. As I discussed in the previous video, naturalism is generally a lack of belief in the supernatural, and a belief in only what can be proven by science, or at least in some way measured by scientific method. And there is, of course, a whole spectrum of beliefs when it comes to naturalists. But I was thinking that I think one of the reasons that naturalism is so compatible with paganism, for me anyway, is that paganism very much embraces nature. It very much embraces the here and now and the human experience. And although within paganism a lot of people believe in an afterworld, a lot of people believe in spirit and other worlds beyond our own, there is still very much a general tendency not to think of those worlds as being superior to our own human experience, but just rather other. And our own human current life experience on this earthly plane is generally considered to be important, if not more important, certainly as important as anything that might come after or beyond. I've certainly found that with an awful lot of major religions, this idea of our current lives, our current human experience is somewhat degraded, and the earth and the universe and this human experience, this sort of mundane experience, is often seen as sort of craven or fallen. And this goes well beyond Christianity, and we definitely see that in nearly all of the major religions, I think. This tendency to sort of, this wish to transcend the mundane, but taking that to a level where our everyday experience is seen as being inferior. And I think one of the ways that naturalism sort of is similar to paganism is that it allows us to sort of take back that seat of power and really sort of embrace the living experience and really appreciate it for what it is, and not be trying to sort of constantly focus on something that's going to come after or something that is beyond, but rather focus on what is here and now, focus on our own human experiences, and to find value in that. Because if you're a naturalist, you don't believe that there is anything beyond, and therefore you absolutely have to embrace the now. You absolutely have to take life as it is and consider it to be precious, perhaps in a way that it might not be for people who have 100% belief in an afterworld, and they are living for then. Whereas if you're a naturalist, I think really the only way to go about it is to live for the now. So I feel that for somebody who has a naturalistic perspective, a religion like paganism that embraces the now, embraces the natural, embraces our human experience, is really compatible and is actually a very good way of helping us to not start to see that world as being sort of meaningless or pointless, or not having any sort of greater meaning beyond what we experience day to day. It kind of gives us context, I suppose. It gives us a way to celebrate that human experience, to celebrate this earth, this cosmos, and the amazing processes that we can see happening in it. It gives us a way to really remember our place in that world, our place in this cosmos, to really sort of take note and take a breather every now and then and remember where we are and what's happening to us, and to really find meaning in that and in that alone. So in my spiritual practice as a naturalist, but also as a pagan, I focus on the cosmos. Obviously focusing on the earth, on the cosmos, on the universe, and on the cycles that we can see taking place within that. It's a sort of a core part of paganism, with the wheel of the year, with following the lunar cycle, with things like observing the 4 elements. It's a very nature-based, a very here and now, observing the universe, observing the earth kind of practice. And I would say maybe as a naturalist that my focus is maybe even more specifically or overtly on those universal processes, that I certainly engage in metaphor. I engage with deity as metaphor. I use sort of deity personalities as metaphors. I engage with them as archetypes, but it's all sort of within this context of seeing the cosmos simply as it is and as we can see it and as science can observe it, and not making any assumptions beyond that. I'm always certainly open to other possibilities. I think the realm of the imagination, as I have said before, is extremely important. And there's an awful lot that goes on in my practice that isn't just strictly, this is how scientists understand the universe to work, and therefore this is how I'm going to talk about it or see it or think about it. There's certainly a lot more going on than that. But it is definitely rooted in the understanding that I have come to have about how the universe works. And it's definitely completely rooted in that. It's either I focus on my understanding of the cosmos in a generally quite a scientific way, or I will focus on the human mind and our perceptions of the cosmos and how we come to understand it. And for that reason, concepts such as the ancestors and deities are very important to me, because I see them as a very important component of the human experience and of how we have come to understand the cosmos and to engage with it and to engage with the all. I've always had a sort of a shaky relationship with any sort of theism label, as I've said before. I've definitely called myself an atheist for quite a long time. I used the label atheist. But I moved away from atheism because I realised that the feeling that I have, the feeling that my experiences of nature, my experiences of thinking about the cosmos and thinking about life evoke in me, those experiences are very profound, and they lend themselves to theistic language, and they have brought me to feel as though the cosmos is divine, whatever that word might mean. And I don't think there is necessarily a really clear definition of what that might mean, of what the divine might be, what it looks like. I certainly don't think it looks like an anthropomorphic figure. I don't think there's a thinking God up in the sky looking down on us, or gods. But there is something about this process of the universe, this amazing unfurling of the universe, the way that it is, the way that it progresses and changes, the way that life has blossomed out of these stars and turned into human beings who have consciousness and who are now looking back on the universe. I find it absolutely, totally awe-inspiring and mind-blowing to an extent that really transcends any sort of mundane kind of level of awe or wonder. So I think I've got to a point in my spiritual progression where I'm happy to abandon the label of atheism and to fully embrace pantheism. And not necessarily because I think my beliefs are completely different to a lot of atheists, particularly a lot of spiritual atheists, but just because of the way that my practice makes me feel, the way that thinking about the universe makes me feel. It makes me feel as though it is divine. I have had divine experiences in nature, and I feel it's like it's the only word that is strong enough to really sum up those feelings, to really get to grips with my experiences of life, really. So I hope that's given you a little bit more insight into how I think about the universe, how my practice looks, and how my beliefs look, and also why I use the label paganism and why I consider myself to be a pantheist, rather than just saying I'm a spiritual atheist and leaving it at that. Okay guys, take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.